Okay, the third section of this tutorial on surfaces, beauty being only skin deep. Let's talk about using the camera, thinking about light source, and that kind of stuff. I'm going to go back to my layout mode, layout workspace. I guess just stop that. And now recall that when this disappears, that just means I'm in my solid viewport view. I'm going to go back in here whenever I want. Things will go a little bit slower. Usually I use this until or even the material view, until I need something different. I would spend a lot more time actually playing with this, but you don't want to watch that. Okay, so oops, I don't want that. So you start off, first off, lighting. Here's my light source. I've adjusted things just so there'd be more even kind of light flooding through. I wouldn't have to nuance it too much by turning this from a point light into a sun. And everyone starts off when they start a new project with a camera and a light. And you can always add new lights if you want to. Let's go back to the light, and as you'll see down here, there are different tabs available, and one is actually a light bulb, and that has your light settings. Typically you start with it as a point light, and you start with a kind of low wattage point light, which and the point light is good for an interior space. I think my head is, we can talk about actually real world sizing of objects, because in Blender it is really impactful if you make things the size, more or less the size they would be in the world. They kind of operate in a way that's just implicitly more right. But I think my head it's quite big, larger than any head, maybe a dragon head, large. But you start with this light. You can always change the wattage, specular the light source is. But if you change it to a sun, it kind of illuminates everything equally from a single direction. So it doesn't really any longer depend on the actual location of the light itself. And now, for a sun, you can go in here. This is the object properties, or you can go in here with the light selected and change the kind of rotation of the object. But here's the angle, handy place to have the angle of the sun as it shines down. So you can kind of change that. You can go in here, object properties, and change these rotations as well. And that's great. It's all good and well for the sun. For the point, you can add multiple points to your reality. You have lights coming from inside. You can make objects actually become lights. So I could just add, if I wanted a second light that was gonna, illuminate some of the, have some secondary light. My key light, as we talk about lighting, maybe we'll get more into that. If you're trying to illuminate a portrait, you have key light, then you have a fill light, and these kind of things in order to light things properly. I'm going to add light, another point, and it originates where the 3D cursor is, which we really haven't talked about much because I don't think we need to. But the 3D cursor is this little thing right here that just determines where new objects will originate, and so it's also a center of some rotations and transformations and stuff like that. I don't find it to be that useful at this stage to think about. Okay, so this, moving it closer to the object, it's a little brighter. We change the wattage again, change the color. Maybe this primary light's a very orange light. And then this light, I could think of it as sort of taking the place of reflected light, because ED doesn't have great reflected light. Computation, but there's a little bit more drama given to this mole man, snake creature, whatever he is. And the lighting, a lot of time could be spent on doing the lighting properly. Maybe just think about what your conditions are. I mean, I'm in an outdoor setting apparently, so maybe it should be, seems like a daylight scene, maybe it should be a sun after all. but you can still do whatever you want. Do a sun, and the kind of strength is on a different scale than with the point light. And there's spots where you can really control the area that's being illuminated and that kind of thing. It's a different color. So it feels really dark. Huh. So turn off the sun. There we go. Yeah, yellow sun, but green sun. Okay. So play with that, and this is where, like, when you're nuancing the lighting, this is where the different render engines make a huge difference. You can see how much slower Cycles is. If you really want to see what you're doing, you're going to want to render at least a single frame. Cycles will typically look better, even though right now it's set to, it's so grainy, right? There's so much graininess, even when it fully kind of resolves itself. That's this number here, the viewport level of resolution. The sampling is much lower by default than the render. What if you were to go up to the render and render an image? You'll see how fast the final rendered result is going to be for Cycles. It's going to go a lot quicker with Eevee. I don't even know where the camera is right now. It's good that it's picking up the character in some way. But you can see that that's a lot better resolved than what I'm seeing in the viewport. And I can turn that render setting off if I want. There'll be less of that noise in the final offing. But those scales have come off really beautiful. I like the way those scales scale up and down. Anyway, you don't want to sit here and watch this. It's really cooked up nicely in the oven. And then if I go into Eevee, render, let's see how much faster it goes. Eevee usually renders full image in one go. Let's see how long this takes. It's already for about 30 seconds. There we go. There's the Eevee render. A lot faster. Less kind of complexity and kind of light bouncing off of things. And we'll talk about render settings in a minute. But so we have our lighting set up. Add as many lights as you want, but just think about the situation in which you need to set off the volume and the kind of drama of the figure as you see fit. And I should obviously texture paint these eyeballs or do something with them. There's nothing going on there. So think about your camera too. You can always click on this camera to go to your camera view. And as you remember, you can, an easy way, you can always click on the camera, or click on the camera up here, and change the location, or here, same thing. But it takes so long to do it. So you want to go to the view, and in this view, lock camera to view. Another thing what you might want to do is, I think by default, it's not like doing it. Sometimes this clipping thing gets in the way if you're going to post objects to edit them. So that will often, that means it'll sort of cut off anything that's too close to the camera. So you might have to change that setting if things are disappearing as you're zooming close to them. But anyway, lock camera to view is a good way to kind of change your view on the fly. You can also animate your camera in the same way you animate anything with the timeline. I'm going to go to this mode because I'm sick of doing that. So I can actually keyframe, insert keyframe, okay, position. Probably want to insert keyframe rotation as well. And just in this few seconds where he's smiling, I could rotate around the dude and back up a little bit. Oops. And here I can insert keyframe available, and that should get the rotation set up. So now I have my camera animated in the same way as my basic meshes or objects can be animated. I can obviously do that with my light as well, where it fits. So there you go, basic camera movements. Remember to turn that off so you're not moving your camera without intending to. You can also kind of, if you're just navigating around your viewport, you can always go up to View, and then Align View, Align Active Camera to View. That's a possibility too. So maybe I go to number 1, and I View, Align Active Camera to View. And so there I am, let's see the frame. And now let's see, oh, and I probably didn't, no, I didn't keyframe it. So, and so let's try that again. View, align active camera to view. And now I can click into keyframe available. Okay, so now I should be rotating around. I don't know, that's not a great, no, not at all. Not a great pan. So maybe I go somewhere in the middle. It's more interesting. So in the middle position, I'll bring it out here. And I'll do the same thing. And then under the keyframe, let's see what I get. Get better framing of the head as I move around. I should really animate some better expressions here. Okay, so that's that stuff. Once I get this thing set up, remember what you're exporting ultimately is your, the view through your camera. It's easy to kind of forget how this thing is going to make its way into the world. Once you've got your your video set up properly, for now we can try to export via EV. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference, but if you want to do cycles, it'll just take 5 times longer to render out. Ultimately, when you're ready to render, the settings, some of the settings are up here. You can change the sampling, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of stuff we'll get into. You can actually set up some more light refraction settings in this area, in these universals here. But you ultimately want to get down to the output settings. By default, you're at 1080p, the kind of standard pixel dimensions of HD television movies. You can just leave it to that. The frame start and end are set to be aligned with whatever you've set it to here in a timeline. So for me, I have up until 80. That's up to the end of the animation. 84, whatever, up until the animation that I had for the head. But you can always change that. You can see how that will, adjust. Just let it go to about here, 15. So then you have the kind of output settings. It's hard for me to find. I always have trouble finding the temp folder, so I have to make sure I put the output to something different. I have my Blender projects folder here, and I can create a new folder. So click in there and accept. So that's where it's going to write to. And now you can actually export a movie file directly. So you can go here and do MPEG if you're doing something long that's going to take a while, it's not common practice or best practice to do that. It's best practice to actually export a bunch of still images and then bring them back in, import them, and then re-export as a movie file. And there's a lot of there's very good reasons for that. If the render breaks down, if the computer shuts down, if it's taking a long time and you don't have time to sit there and wait, you're using a school computer, and you can't just let it render overnight. If it's rendering out a movie file, if you stop it, it's just going to be lost time. You've wasted your effort. If you're rendering still frames, and you'll know, like if you get to 35 and you have to go home, come back the next day, you can start at 36. It's very easy. So we do PNGs or JPEGs. That doesn't really matter. These settings are just leave. So we're going to do that first. Post-processing. This is important. We just want to make sure that we're only doing compositing is the 3D view that our current editing mode. Sequencer is what we'll be doing the second time around. The sequencer is a little video editor inside of Blender as well, and that's called the sequencer. We want to turn that off for now. So once we're ready with that, we're just going to go up to render and not render image, but render animation. And that'll take a certain amount of time. And I'll come back once that is rendered with all of my files. And we'll export the video. There's one already done. Okay, so it completed the render of the 50 frames fairly quickly, in about 10 minutes, which is great. Eevee, great job. Would have taken longer with cycles. Here's the render. And again, I probably didn't stress this enough. Instead of the render image, I did render animation there. And now I have my animation all rendered. I need to go to my video sequencer. Right now I'm in 3D viewport. These are all the different panels I can have open. Video sequencer. It's very simple. It's just like a video editor. I haven't done very much with it besides doing this render, but you can render together different, many different outputs, many different videos into one, and there's a lot of things you can do here. It's a pretty good video editor. But what I'm going to do is just go to frame 1 and add image sequence, and I'll navigate to the Blender projects folder, to my snaky, is that really what I called it? Snaky folder. I'll hit A to highlight all. And you want to put that in a folder where there's nothing else to make it a little bit easier to deal with. A for all. And add image strip. And you can see that I'm going to scroll out by sliding my wheel. Oh, I guess I should start at 0. I usually start at 1. But I guess my output was set to start at frame 0. It's okay. Okay. I'm going to be okay with that. So let's go to, we're going to go again to the output. And we have to change some things, because we're going to go through the same process, the same render animation process. But if we just push this button now, it would at first output still frames again. And we want to fix that. So instead of outputting PNG, we go to the same directory, snaky, but instead of outputting PNG, we'll do output FFmpeg video. Okay? And then in the encoding, instead of Matroska, I'm going to go to MPEG-4, which is a common file format, common container. The codec is fine. All this other stuff is fine. You can increase the quality of the output, whatever. It's going to go really fast this time because we have all of our images set up, but instead of rendering out from the compositor, the compositing where we're editing the material, we're going to render out from the sequencer. the video sequencer, see? Same thing. Okay. So then we're going to go render animation. It is an extra step to render stills before getting the final video, but it adds a lot of predictability to the process, or it adds some security to the process, I should say. So now I go to my Blender projects, to Snaky, where's Snaky, there's Snaky, and I should find all of my stills, and then this MP4, a little fast, buddy, but there we go. The end.